everyone. My name is Rich J. Panyasa. I'm going to discuss approaches to describing organization culture. This section explores different models that provide insight into the various dimensions of organization culture. While no single framework has emerged, several frameworks have been suggested. Although these frameworks were developed in the 1980s, their ideas about organization culture to continue to be influential today. Some of the companies described as excellent may not hold the same level of reputation today, but the concepts from these frameworks are still widely used in companies worldwide. Managers are advised to evaluate the different components of these frameworks and apply the parts that align with their own organization's strategic and cultural values. The Ochi framework, developed by researcher William G. Ochi, focuses on analyzing the organizational culture of three groups of firms: typical US firm, typical Japanese firms, and type C US firms. Ochi identified 7 points of comparison to highlight the differences in organizational cultures among these groups. According to Ochi, the distinct culture of Japanese firms and type C US firms contribute to their success, while typical US face challenges. This framework aims to provide insights into the factors that contribute to the success of difficulties experienced by different types of organizations. Commitment to employees discuss the cultural values and practices of Japanese and type Z US firms in terms of retaining their employees. Both types of firms prioritize keeping employees and resort layoffs only as a last option. In Japan, this commitment is often seen in the form of lifetime employment. Although some Japanese companies are challenging this value due to recent economic difficulties. In Type C US companies, the cultural value is expressed through a commitment to long-term employment. While US firms may not have the same level of cultural commitment as Japanese firms, there is still an expectation that employees may be let go during serious downturns, changes in ownership, or mergers. An example of this is Wells Fargo Bank's acquisition of First. An example of this is Wells Fargo Bank's acquisition of First Interstate Bank, which resulted in significant layoffs. Table 15.3, the Ochi Framework. Cultural vision. Commitment to employee evaluation, careers, control, decision-making, responsibility, concern for people. Expression in Japanese companies. Lifetime employment, slow and qualitative, very broad, implicit, and informal. Group and consensus, group, holistic. Expression in type Z US companies is long-term employment, slow and qualitative, moderately broad, implicit and informal. Group consensus, group holistic. And the expression in typical US companies is short-term employment, fast and qualitative, narrow, explicit and formal, individual, and narrow. Evaluation. Ochi observed that Japanese and Type Z US companies have a distinct approach where the assessment of workers and managers is a prolonged process, often taking up to 10 years. This evaluation involves both qualitative and quantitative performance measures. Promotions in this organization are relatively slow and are based on extensive interviews with individuals who have interacted with the person being evaluated. In contrast, the typical US firms emphasize rapid evaluation, prioritizing quantitative performance metrics. This cultural value promotes short-term thinking among workers and managers in these firms. Fauci observations highlight a fundamental cultural difference in the evaluation process between these two types of organizational culture. Career. Fauci observed the significant differences between Japanese Type Z US firms and typical US firms. In Japanese and Type C US companies, there is a strong emphasis on broad career path that span multiple functions. In Japan, this has resulted in employees gaining experience in 6 or 7 distinct business functions. While the career path in Type Z US firms are somewhat narrower than in Japan, they still encompass a range of functions. On the other hand, the career path valued in typical US firms is considerably narrower, with most US managers specializing in only one or two business functions throughout their careers. Fauci attribute this narrow career path in US firms to the value placed on specialization with the organizational culture. This difference in career values reflects contrasting approaches to career development and expertise between Japanese Type C US firms and typical US firms. Control. This topic explores how to cultural values influence the mechanism through which control is exercised in US, Japanese, and Type Z US firms. All organizations need control for coordinated action, and cultural values play a crucial role in shaping these approaches. In typical US firms, control is primarily seen as formal and is based on explicit directions. This includes job descriptions, delineation of authority, and various rules and procedures. The emphasis is on clear and direct guidance, often stemming from hierarchical structures and supervisory roles. On the other hand, Japanese and Type C US firms rely more on informal and implicit mechanism for control. Decision making. There is notable cultural distinction between Japanese Type Z US firms and typical US firms. Japanese and Type C US companies embrace a cultural expectation that decision making is a group process characterized by full information sharing and consensus building. This collective approach reflects a cultural value that emphasizes collaboration and, in conclusion, in decision making processes. Responsibility. The relation between group and individual decision making is closely examined Japanese and Type C US. Responsibility. The relation between group and individual decision making is closely examined. Japanese and Type C US firms share a cultural inclination towards collective responsibility, where the entire group is held accountable for actions made collaboratively. This contrasts with both Type Z US and typical US firms where individuals are expected to take responsibility for decisions. Fauci suggested that the resolution to this apparent contradiction lies in the cultural view of slow, qualitative evaluation when decisions are made collectively, especially in the first instance. It is challenging to attribute outcomes to a specific individual's influence versus the overall group quality. However, over time, if a manager consistently effectively with groups that contribute positively to the organization, that manager can be held responsible for the outcomes of group decision-making process. Conversely, managers who consistently fail to lead groups effectively can be held accountable for the lack of positive result from group decision making. This nuanced approach to responsibility reflects the cultural values and expectations around decision making and evaluation in different organizational contexts. Concern for people. The last cultural value examined by Ochi deals with a concern for people. Not surprisingly, in Japanese firms and Type Z firms, the cultural value that dominates in holistic concern for workers and managers. Holistic concern extends beyond concern for a person simply as a worker or manager to concern about the person's home life, hobbies, personal beliefs, hopes, fears, and aspirations. In typical US firms, the concerns for people is a narrow one that focuses on the workplace. The cultural that emphasize a strong concern for people rather than one that emphasize a work or task orientation can decrease work's turnover. The Peter and Waterman approach, as outlined in their bestseller In Search of Excellence, places a strong emphasis on the connection between organizational culture and performance. In their study of highly successful U.S. firms, Peters and Waterman saw contributed to their success with a particular focus on cultural values. The excellence value identified by Peters and Waterman. Attitude of an excellent firm. First is bias for action. Second, stay close to the customer. 3. Autonomy and entrepreneurship. 4. Productivity through people. 5. Hands-on management. 6. Stick to the knitting. 7. Simple form, lean staff. 8. Simultaneously and high organization. These frameworks reflects the cultural values that these successful firms embrace, highlighting the importance of these values in shaping effective management practices and contributing to organizational excellence. Bias for action, as highlighted by Peter and Waterman, emphasize that successful firms exhibit a cultural inclination where managers are expected to make decisions even in the absence of complete information. In these organizations, the norm is to take action promptly, recognizing that waiting for all the facts may result in missed opportunities. Peters and Waterman argue that, especially for crucial decisions, it's unlikely that all the facts will ever be available. Hence, delaying decisions in such situation is viewed as equivalent to not making a decision at all. According to Peters and Waterman, firms with cultural values that include a bias for action tend to outperform those without such values. The ability to act decisively even in uncertain circumstances is seen as a key factor in gaining a competitive edge and capturing business opportunities before rival firms do. Stay close to the customer, as advocated by Peters and Waterman, underscores the belief that organizations with a cultural emphasis in prioritizing customers tend to outperform those lacking this value. According to Peter and Waterman, customers are not only integral to a firm's current success but also play a crucial role in shaping its future financial performance. By concentrating on the customer, understanding their needs, and going the extra mile to satisfy them when necessary, organizations can achieve superior performance. This customer-centric approach is viewed as essential for maintaining competitiveness and fostering sustained success. Autonomy and entrepreneurship, as proposed by Peters and Waterman, revolves around the idea that successful firms counteract the tendencies towards bureaucracy and lack of innovation associated with large size. This organization fosters autonomy and entrepreneurship by encouraging independent and innovative activities with smaller business segments. Peters and Waterman highlight stories with the organization about individuals such as junior engineers or managers who take risks and make significant contributions to major product decision or implement successful marketing plan. The emphasis on autonomy and entrepreneurship aims to break down bureaucratic barriers, promote innovation, and empower individuals at various levels to drive positive change within the organization. Productivity through people, as highlighted by Peter and Waterman, aligns with Ochi perspective. Both believe that successful firms acknowledge their most crucial assets as their people. Both workers are managers, emphasizing the value of organizational culture. They share the belief that treating individuals with respect and dignity is not just suitable but it is in fact indispensable for achieving success. The core idea is the prioritizing the well-being and development of individuals within the organization enhances overall productivity and is integral to long-term success. Hands-on management, as observed by Peter and Waterman, emphasize the importance of senior managers staying actively involved with the core function of the business they oversee. It is an expectation rooted in a deeply embedded cultural norm reflecting the belief that managers should not lead from behind closed office doors but rather engage in wandering around various operational areas such as the plant, design facility, research and development department, and more. These approaches to management underscore the significance of direction, engage and fish first-hand knowledge for effective leadership, and it is considered as a key element in the success of the studied business. Simple form lean staff. Successful firms, according to them, exhibit few administrative layers and maintain relative small corporate staff groups. In these well-managed companies, the significance of a manager is not solely measured by the number of people reporting to them, but rather by the impact they have on the organization's performance. The cultural values with this first emphasize that what matters is the performance of the staff is not its size. The strategic approaches emphasize the importance of staying within the realm of the company's expertise, simultaneously loose and tight organization. As identified by Peters and Waterman may seem contradictory and at first, but it finds resolution in the firm's values. These successful organizations are tightly organized because all members understand and believe in the firm's values. This shared cultural bond serves as a strong adhesive that unifies the organization simultaneously. However, these firms are loosely organized due to reduced administrative overhead, fewer staff members, and fewer rules and regulations. This approach aligns with the current notion of relying on the company's core competencies for sustained success. The loose organization structure is made possible by the common values held by individuals within the firm. When making decisions, employees can evaluate their option based on the organization's underlying values such as a bias for action or a commitment to customer service. By referencing shared values, employees can independently decide on action to take. The streamlined structure fosters increased innovation, risk-taking, and faster response times.